Moriden, Athluan.
Every tale has its dark side, my friends. Even so noble a hero as Moriden did not always help the people.
Do not take this as truth, but there are rumors that he worked for a time for the Thieves Guild of Skyrim.
So sorry to miss the beginning of the evening tale, my friend. What did I miss?
Though none alive would dare to besmirch Moriden's name, the rumors persist. Some claim that he finally fell to greed and avarice. Others, that he was forced into serving their desires.
Oh. Well, of course it would be this part. Should have realized. Not like there's a great deal of my story left to tell.
Despite what seems evidence that cannot be explained away, yet others claim that Moriden became one of the greatest of thieves, not for personal gain, but to once again save the people of Skyrim from the darkest of horrors.
Oh, that's rich. The darkest of horrors. Seriously. The only thing I saved anyone from during that time of my life was the burden of a full purse. The rumors, I'm afraid, are true, my friend.
So, though they are only the darkest of slander, dear listeners, gather round once more and hear the tale of the greatest of thieves.
For it to be slander, it would have to be intentionally wrong. Much of this tale is right, but they won't give you the details. You know how much I enjoy a good tale in a good tavern. So let me save you the pain of listening to the drivel. Far enough from the rest of the people here that I can tell you how it really happened, because the truth of it... The truth is not what the bards would have you believe. Second Seed, 4th Era 202. My not-so-glorious return to Markarth. Alone now among the major holds of Skyrim, in that the guild has, for the moment, no influence here. A hole in the network of eyes, ears, and fences that we are re-establishing across the province. With the Silverbloods all but destroyed, it is a power vacuum that we can still fill. Even so, I detest this city. Robbing the locals of their valuables will not just be my duty, but my pleasure. Vex's list of stone locations also shows that there are a few in the area, including one that I missed during my assault on a forsworn location. It'll be interesting to see if they have learned anything from our last encounter. I'm doubting it. But I've been wrong and surprised before. But first, the local thievery. The trip through Markarth to sweep up its only moderately protected riches made me realize just how rich a place this city really is. Arnleif & Sons, despite their overall down appearance, is still richer in many ways than Belithol's general goods has ever been, and the Silverblood's treasure house lives up to its name. Those, however, I've been to before and was aware of. It was the alchemists, though, that really gave me pause. Ithelia is clearly doing quite well for herself. Nowhere else in Skyrim have I seen such a full set of shelves, and many of the things here are rare indeed. Though I was tempted to appropriate some of them for my own use, I also knew they were rare enough that they would be noticed missing very quickly. No reason to give people a reason to look harder at me. An additional stone now lies in my pack, formerly belonging to the Silverbloods. Only 4 remain. I can't wait to see Vex's face when I make her pay up on the complete set. Dead Crone Rock, when last I visited, fell to me within half a day of starting my assault. I used stealth, ducked to the interior portions of the site to avoid open combat, and slaughtered my way to the top. Thinking back on it, I decided that I had been far too cautious that first time. I could do it faster. I could roll through them as though they were nothing. I could call lightning out of the sky and strike them down before I got anywhere near them, then just casually stroll through the bodies and claim the stone I had missed last time. So I did. The stone was on the altar, hidden under the dead goat. No wonder I'd missed it last time. After returning to the bottom of the slopes, I set up camp and planned to return to Riften tomorrow. 14 Second Seed, 4th Era, 202. The last of the known stones, the 23rd, was in yet another place I had been before. This time, Felgo Keep, site of a daring rescue of a moronic apprentice who had stolen books from the librarian at the College of Winterhold. Last I heard, he was still being punished for his audacity. Or he's dead, I honestly can't remember which anymore, and it really doesn't matter. Once again, I called the lightning down to destroy all of the mages on the exterior of the site, walked in, grabbed the stone, and walked out. I have no interest in clearing the entire place out a second time. I came, I got what I wanted, and I left. The survivors should thank me for being so merciful. This does, however, leave me with a problem, as there is a 24th stone out there somewhere. Vex's notes, as helpful as they were, have nothing on this final stone. I must reluctantly put my search for it aside for the moment. Once I have some idea of where it is, then I'll worry about it again. But until then, back to Riften. Markarth is already opening up to us. The son of one of the guild's allies in Markarth, from back before Mercer took over the guild as the master, has contacted Delvin. He needs a job done, and, as others before him, has offered to help the guild get its foot in the door there if we provide what it needs. Maybe it was a little nostalgic for Delvin as well, bringing in one of the old families. Regardless, I'm being sent to deal with the situation, whatever it is. Brynjolf was nowhere to be seen, however. Asking around only told me he was looking into something for Mercer, but no details on where he was going or any other further details. Hopefully we'll get something by the time I return. I made good enough time this morning that I can likely make it back to Markarth by late this evening. When I met with Endon in the Silverblood Inn, I could almost have laughed when he told me what he needed. Not that it was petty, really the job wasn't. It was more that the job was already done. Endon had ordered something from Valenwood some time ago, a silver mold that was to arrive via Khajiit caravan. It never arrived. He learned it had been attacked by a group of bandits operating out of Pinewood Watch, led by a woman named Rigel. This should sound familiar. I recently destroyed that entire band when I went there hunting for one of the stones. I even still had the mold on me. Producing it from my pack seconds after he mentioned he needed it made his eyes go wide. We have our agent here in Markarth now, which means we now have agents everywhere in Skyrim. From here, it'll be more about making sure our name is not forgotten or thought little of, as it was so recently. I slept at my home in Markarth, It was there, and I didn't want to sleep in the wilderness again. 15 Second Seed, 4th Era, 202. Delvin, at least, is convinced that I am the best thief in the entire guild at this point. No job he's handed me has been mismanaged, the coffers of the guild have never been more full, and we have young idiots banging on the door, so to speak, to join up, all of it. Because of me, because I spat in the face of whatever curse it was that had been placed on the guild. And it has gotten me nowhere yet. There is a changed feel to the flagon and the guild, something that wasn't there before, but I can't say if it's nocturnal or not yet. Too weak, too ephemeral. Despite that, they are still the best lead I have. Brynjolf is still out, but he's expected to be back in the next half a day or so. In the meantime, more larceny. Though this time we're keeping it home, here in Riften. The other cities have been cowed into line. Now it's time to start doing the same thing here. Time to start showing people who runs this city. Here's a hint. Despite what she thinks, it isn't Maven. The jobs this time were mostly in the lower shops in Riften, though a few homes were targeted as well. The usual kinds of things, recent acquisitions, number forgeries, nothing spectacular. Enough to keep the locals in low-level terror of us and to inform Maven that her opinion and directions no longer matter. If she's stupid enough to try to cash in her so-called connections with the Dark Brotherhood, that will be the Brotherhood's loss, not ours. As I understand it, the Brotherhood is all but destroyed anyhow. The threat is empty. After a nice afternoon perusing the contents of other people's homes, pockets, and lockboxes, I returned to the guild, hoping that Brynjolf had returned and had news. Brynjolf had returned. He was meeting with Mercer when I arrived, so I gave over the goods to Vex and Delvin and then waited. If there was something new, then I'd be hearing about it soon, I was sure. About half an hour later, Brynjolf entered the flagon and signaled for me, then sent me to see Mercer. We finally have something. This enemy we have, whoever it is, made a mistake in the second note I found, mentioning a go-between for the sales. This go-between was using an alias, but one that was known. He is a contact up in Solitude, an Argonian called Gollumai, who works as an inside man at the East Empire Trading Company. His betrayal will cost him a good bit, but it won't cost his life. That was made clear to me. Any other tactic I chose to use to get the information we need, however, is on the table. This is now the guild's #1 priority. So I grabbed a round of jobs for Solitude, and was on my way. 16 Second Seed, 4th Era, 202. Gollumai thinks of himself as a power in the underworld. That became clear the moment he indicated that I couldn't possibly be from the guild, since he had told Mercer he wanted nothing to do with us anymore. That lasted until I started asking questions he didn't want to answer, then gave the name he had used when he'd been acting as a broker for the Golden Glow estate sale. He didn't give me much, but I now know that the buyer was a woman, and she was angry, very angry, with all of it directed squarely at Mercer Frey. No names were used, unsurprising, given the nature of this entire deal, but I almost have to think that whoever this woman is, she had to have been from the guild originally. She knows too much about how we operate not to. Which means likely she was probably close to Mercer. How close I can't say, but for there to be as much anger here as Gollumai indicates, I have a few guesses. I don't think he's given me everything. As cagey as he is, I'm betting that as soon as he thinks I'm out of sight, he's going to ground somewhere. Or perhaps sending a message to this mysterious woman. Time to become a shadow. He made straight for the warehouses of the East Empire Trade Company, which just made this more difficult. They won't take me being in there lightly, Thane of the local hold or not, which means stealth just became the most important thing, and I have to consider if killing any of the guards is worth the potential backlash or not. Given how badly Mercer wants this information, I think I know what that answer will be. Even more so, knowing now that the person we're chasing is a woman with connections to him. I had two advantages as I made my way through the East Empire's warehouse cave. First, the entire place was dark, with the only real light being provided by the torches being held by the guards who patrolled the docks. Second, they weren't actually expecting anyone to be so bold as to even try to get past them. For the second, they had good reason. Even unaware, they almost caught me twice. Their setup for security is tight, though it does have one or two blind spots that I was able to make use of. I found a nice perch and watched Gollum as he made his way around the docks without being stopped. I did, however, find it curious that he waited until the guards were looking elsewhere before he dropped down a ladderway into the water and then vanished behind a large sack of crates. I had only to mimic his path, avoiding all notice. Noting a rather large office overlooking the cave, I stopped in there, briefly, and found a large map of company trade routes, something I'm sure that Delvin will be able to make excellent use of. Then, I followed the Argonian, slipping by the remaining guards. If Gollum wasn't so valuable to the guild for everything we're gonna hold over him, he wouldn't be in trouble. He'd be dead where he stood. Brynjolf had said he thought the Argonian was holding out on us, and the cave I found him in is the proof. He's been skimming from the East Empire Company, which I expected, but not on this scale. Not enough for him to be leading his own band of bandits back here. When he saw me stride into the firelight, though, he knew it was over. He abandoned any subterfuge, and was all but begging for his life. He claims he was planning to tell Mercer, which I doubt, but he gave me a name, spoke it like I should know who it was. Carlia. When I looked blank, he filled me in. Carlia had killed the previous guildmaster, Gallus, and seems to plan to add Mercer to her list of dead guildmasters as well. And in the back of my mind, I heard Ithelia's voice. Seek the shadows, seek the betrayer. This was it. This was what she had told me to do. I was on the right track. I didn't allow this to show on my face, though. Instead, I told him I'd let Mercer make the decision. And once I have finished my business here in Solitude, including some time at the museum, I will be racing back to Riften with the news. 17, Second Seed, 4th Era, 202. I left Solitude just after midnight, once I had finally stolen the last item on the shopping list. By the time I got to Riften, the sun was just short of rising above the mountains, and I was dog-tired. I made my way straight to Mercer, and gave him the news of Carlia's return. His reaction was that of a person hearing a dead person's name. He didn't say it flat out, but despite the story he spun, he thought she was dead. The description of her words to him meant something as well. Gollum had said that Carlia had said that she was going to where the end began, or some such. That, according to Mercer, is Snow Vale Sanctum, where Carlia murdered Gallus. He wants me along as well, likely for backup. He also seems to think this is more about proving herself the superior thief somehow. Mercer went on every job, every heist with her, and since he's the only one who knows her methods inside and out, he'd be the only one who could catch her. Something about this feels wrong. But I can't think straight enough to figure it out. I'll get an hour or two of rest, and then I'll be meeting Mercer at Snowvale. After a small stop-off in Windhelm, with another shopping list. The morning was spent in Windhelm, engaged in my favorite cooperative activities with the citizens of the fair city. Our roles were well established and simple. They were to ignore me and pretend that I didn't exist. I was to rob them blind of everything they owned. It worked out well, with no untoward incidents. It was just after noon when I left the city, heading north for Snowvale Sanctum. I'm looking forward to this. A mission of vengeance with the Guild Master of the Thieves Guild. If this does not get Nocturnal's attention, then nothing will. Even so, I can't help but remember that feeling of wrongness this morning. Maybe it is just me. But is Mercer perhaps a little too eager to kill Carlia? It seems to me he is making a number of assumptions. Or rather, he is asking me to agree with a great many things without proof. If Carlia wanted Mercer dead, why the subterfuge? Why the end run around Maven and the Guild instead of just straight challenging him, or, better, performing the Black Sacrament and having the Brotherhood take care of him? Something is not adding up, but I don't know enough yet to say what is off. A snowstorm had blown in off the Sea of Ghosts, and snow flurries made any greetings between myself and Mercer brief. He did, however, take the time to explain a few things. How Gallus had died. How the Guild had torn itself apart in the aftermath. He claims to have no idea why Carlia would have killed a man that, by all accounts, she was very close to. Gallus even referred to her as his little nightingale, hardly the kind of setup that I would expect would result in her murdering him with arrow fire. The tale leaves me slightly more at ease, but there is something about his intensity that I still do not trust. I trust it even less, actually. Instead of taking the lead, with me backing him up, he's putting me up front to lead the way into the sanctum. I can't help but see that as being his meat shield, and I am not pleased about it. Neither, however, am I in a position to argue about it. Carlia, or at least someone, has already been here. The bodies of the recently redeceased are everywhere, and the traps are all still either in place or have been reset. She knows someone is coming. I'm betting that Golomai spilled his guts to her as soon as I left, or perhaps more likely she was shadowing the Argonian and saw the whole thing. My danger sense is tingling badly. It had spiked as we entered, though, not as we moved into the sanctum. I'm no slouch with a lockpick, but I've never seen a lock like the one that had barred entry to this place. Yet Mercer, somehow, looked at it and had it open in seconds, claiming all it took was a little bit of skill. He is lying to me. Somehow I can hear it in his voice. What I don't know is what he's lying about, or why. What I saw is simply not possible. I knew it from my own experiences, yet I also just saw it happen. Mercer... Somehow, he opened a puzzle gate without the claw key that should have gone with it. I have tried this many times. There isn't even a way to access the lock mechanism without the claw, and yet he opened it in seconds. Oblivion, he even said that they were impossible to open without the key, and then did it anyhow. How? And why am I suddenly... We walked through the door, and it suddenly hit me. According to Golomai, Carlia had said that she was going to where the end began. That phrase, that's not something that a person who had murdered a man would say. They would call this the place where it had ended, not where the end began. That set of words are those of a person who watched something they cared about destroy itself, or where their life had begun to end. I rethought everything. I put things in a new perspective. I realized what must have actually happened. I didn't realize it soon enough. I had realized it all when I took the first step through the doorway, and then I was on the ground in agony, an arrow in my shoulder. I could feel the poison on the bar begin to work its way through my body, and I nearly lost consciousness. I fought to keep it, to witness what I thought was now coming. That arrow? I knew it hadn't been meant for me. It had been meant for Mercer. It had been meant for the betrayer I had been told to watch for by Ithelia. Carlia came out of the shadows, and the two talked for a few moments. Enough that it confirmed my reasoning. Mercer had killed Gallus, not Carlia. I wasn't sure about the details they were talking about between lacking context and fighting through the pain of my wound. Carlia vanished, taking the smart route of not challenging Mercer with blades. I could see the anger in his eyes when he turned and realized I was still alive. He walked over to me, thanked me for my assistance in finding Carlia. And then he stabbed me in the belly and left me to die. 18-second seed, 4th era, 202. I was as surprised as I think Mercer would have been to awaken. I was even more surprised to find that Carlia was standing over me. When she noticed I was awake, she said nothing at first, but handed me a healing potion before returning her attention to the small campfire she was keeping alive against the snowstorm. Once I drank the potion, yes, I took it. If she wanted me dead, I already would be. She spoke. Quietly, at first. She confirmed my guesses, told me that it had been Mercer who killed Gallus and had used her as a scapegoat. For the last 25 years, she's been on the run, and at last she'd had a plan. She had lured Mercer here for 2 reasons. First, to gather the remains of Gallus, which had been left here, and lay them to rest. Second, to capture Mercer. The arrow that had hit me had a unique paralytic poison that had slowed my blood flow, and was the reason I hadn't bled out when Mercer stabbed me. The reason Carlia had been able to save me. Gallus still had his gear and equipment on him, it seemed, when Carlia had arrived, and there was a journal or notebook on him that she couldn't read, a language she hadn't seen before. When I suggested it be translated, her eyes lit up. Enthea, a mage at the college, could be trusted to do it. Enthea had known about Gallus being something called a nightingale, some kind of splinter group of the Thieves Guild. After I get a bit more sleep to heal, she wants me to talk to Enthea while she buries Gallus's remains. She will catch up to me later. As for Mercer, he just made the largest mistake of what will be his rapidly shortening life. I have been stabbed in the back yet again, but someone I tried to trust. There is only one possible response. I will have my revenge. When I awoke just before dawn, Carlia was already gone. I packed up as best I could, given I was still hurting like I've not in quite some time, and then rode for Winterhold. Enthea, I knew, didn't usually stay in the college. He preferred to live out in the city itself, usually at the inn there. When I arrived to look for him, he was already awake and taking his breakfast. He knew me, of course, though only somewhat. When I said Carlia had sent me, however, his entire manner changed. I handed over the book, and he took a single look before he sighed. It was written in the language of the Falmer, the Snow Elves. He couldn't translate it, but he knew someone who might, So it turns out, do I. Calcelmo. I told Enthea I was going on to Markarth. If Carlia came to him, he was to pass that on. I turned and left the inn, then mounted and began the long ride. Calcelmo is a conceited, self-absorbed, over-ambitious moron. He is working on what he calls his magnum opus, a book on the Falmer tongue and how to read it, something that, without me and my hard work, he could never have dreamed of doing. And yet, when I ask to see this work, to see the fruits of what are essentially my own labors, he denies me. I even called in my marker about getting him and Folly together so long ago now, and the best he says he can offer me is something I already have. Access to the Dwemer Museum. But not to the laboratory, not to where the information I actually need will be. I will therefore enter anyhow and take what I need. I don't have time for this kind of foolishness. Carlia is convinced that whatever is in this journal will help bring down Mercer, and though I don't have the hatred for him that I did for Ulfric Stormcloak, it is in the same general level. Mercer will die for this, and I am not content to wait for it to happen. Adra above. Calcelmo is a fraud. Or at the least not nearly as innovative and smart as he wants the world to think he is. No wonder he didn't want anyone to see his work before he published. They would find out his secret, and unless there was a compelling reason, such as being related to the doddering old man, few would have any reason not to speak up. It wasn't even my own contributions, substantial as they were, that have made him the Falmer expert that he claims to be. It is this stone. A giant tablet, written in 2 differing languages. From the look, I'd say one is Dwemer and the other Falmer, and I'm betting that they are the same statement, or series of statements, in both languages. Since Calcelmo is already more or less able to work with Dwemer runes without a problem, it's not a hard thing to move from the one to the other and make himself look like a genius. I don't have time to marvel further, though. I'd had to trip one of the Dwemer traps to get to this room, and Calcelmo's nephew is convinced that it couldn't have been by accident. I haven't had to kill anyone yet, and I hope not to, but there's only one way out of this room. A distraction might work, but I kept my bow ready, just in case. Just when I'd begun to draw my bow to shoot, I noticed a small ledge in the hallway leading to the door. It was tricky getting to it without drawing attention, but after a few minutes of gauging where all the search party members were, I managed to get there and then walk it to the doorway. A quick drop, and I was through the door back onto the outside balcony. I had to figure that if they were searching up here, they would be down in the first set of rooms as well. I searched almost frantically for another path. Suddenly, I saw one, a narrow path between the rocks and the stone architecture, which led down to the largest of the waterfalls in the city. I briefly considered jumping down into the pool below, but decided that was insane. Instead, I moved downward carefully, from small ledge to small ledge, until I was, at last, on the ground. I looked back up and gulped. I may be better about heights than I used to be, but looking back at the path I'd just come down made me sweat more than I had in actually doing it. So far, the only thing that ties me to this break-in is my asking Calcelmo about it. I need to get out of Markarth before they come looking for me, and I need to do it now while the search is still going to muddy the waters. If I am seen leaving casually, while they know they still have the thief up in the tower, I'll be cleared by default. Enthea will be my destination. With the rubbing I took of the translation stone above, he should be able to make some sense of Gallus's journal. Enthea was not alone when I found him. Carlia had arrived. We both waited eagerly while the mage did his translation of Gallus's journal, both of us silent. At last it was done, and more was made clear. Gallus had been suspecting Mercer for a long while before his murder. Mostly it was based on how much coin Mercer was spending, thousands of septims when he wasn't pulling in near that much during his heists. Personal pleasures, an overly luxurious lifestyle, the classic signs of a man who was getting additional funds on the side, somehow. Gallus suspected it was from the guild's own treasury, but was never able to prove it. Just as he suspected, but could not prove, that Mercer had violated something called the Twilight Sepulchre. Enthir had never heard of it. Carlia's sharp intake of breath made it clear she knew exactly what it was. Once Enthir had been dismissed, she told me what she said her oaths allowed, that the sepulchre was, in essence, a temple to Nocturnal. Jackpot. Though she wouldn't say more about the location or Nocturnal herself, our path forward is clear. We bring the translation to the guild and turn them against Mercer. Then, once he is out of the way, on the run or dead, I can start tracking down the last of the Daedric Lords.